Hey there, and welcome to exercise number 96. If you want to solve this one on your own, then click on the link in the description. If not, keep watching and we're going to solve it together. In this one, we need to write a function named cacheGetResult that receives one parameter, a function named getPromise that returns a promise used to compute some result. Now, this promise will take a bit of time to resolve, so let's assume a minimum of 1 second. Now, the cacheGetResult function, so the one we need to implement, should return another function. Let's call this one getResult. The getResult function should return a promise that resolves to the same result as our getPromise parameter. However, multiple calls to the getResult function should not recompute the result. Instead, the result should be computed only once and then cached for subsequent calls. Now, I know this description might be a bit complex, so the idea behind this exercise, before we look at the example, is that we'll have a promise that computes something and that takes like 1 second or 2 seconds to compute. And then we have another function that we'll call this promise. We'll compute it only once, and then any invocation after that, we're gonna cache the result someplace. So we're not gonna waste 2 seconds on every call, just on the first call. Below we have an example, so let's look at that. First, we have the getPromise function declared here at the end. Now, this function will return a promise that will resolve after 1 second with the text hello world. Now, I know this isn't really hard computation, but it simulates one. So we simulate we're doing some work by waiting for 1 second, then we resolve with hello world. Next, we pass this function, so getPromise, to our cacheGetResult, and we get another function called getResult. Then we're going to call this one and we're going to do .then result. Now this result is going to be hello world and we're going to print it. Now, before we print it, we have to wait 1 second, right? So this console log is going to run after 1 second of calling this function. Then inside this .then, we're going to return the call to getResult again. And remember, promises can be chained. So then we can do another .then, we're going to get result2, which is going to be actually the same value, hello world. But the second console log is not going to wait another second. It's actually going to run, immediately. Why? Because we already cached the result. So we have this hello world someplace cached. We don't need to wait for the promise to finish. We just get the result from the cache and we return it. Now that we went over the description, let's go here into the right side, into the code area, and start solving the function. Now let's first create the getPromise. So getPromise is going to be a function, right, which we're going to return. Now this getPromise will return a promise and getPromise getResult, I want to name it. Sorry. Yeah, it's it's actually, you cannot create a variable, redeclare it here if we have it in the parameter. Okay, so it should be named getResult. Now this one is going to return a promise and we're going to need to do some async work inside. So I'm just going to put async here. Now I'm also going to need to store the value someplace. So I'm going to here create a variable result, and then I'm going to create a new variable did compute, right? So this one is going to be initially false. Initially we didn't compute the value and this one is undefined. I mean, let's just put undefined here. Now when running this function, we're going to first do a check. If we have it already computed, we're just going to return result. Otherwise, we're going to say result is await of getPromise. So we're going to call the promise, compute the variable, assign it to result, assign did compute to true, and return result. This means that the first call is did compute is going to be false. It's going to wait for this promise to finish, so for 1 second. It's going to get the result, put it here, did compute becomes true, and returns it. And any subsequent call, so the call number 2, number 3, and so on, will stop at this if. We'll say, hey, is did compute true? Yes, it is. Then we're just going to return the result, so no more waiting. Now, this being said, let's test our solution. And voila, it works. Cheers, and see you in the next one.